Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Late Night Coffee Talk. I have got my coffee, I have got notes, I've got a window open over here, and I'm going to take your questions tonight. We got a lot to discuss. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, do we have a lot to discuss? But before we kick off, let me take care of business first, right? For those of you watching for the first time, this is Late Night Coffee Talk. I'm the host, if you want to call it that. I'm not a host. We're having a conversation. I'm president of the Texas Nationalist movement, Daniel Miller. And this is that time of the week where I take a break and grab yet another cup of coffee, fire up the camera, and we have a conversation. In fact, you are going to lead most of it tonight based off of the questions that you ask. And so, how do you ask questions? Well, let me answer that one as the first question tonight. It's pretty simple. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure, of course, to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. But you can drop your questions in chat, and we'll get them over here. Additionally, if you look at the bottom of your screen right there, you can email your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org, and that'll be scrolling down at the bottom the whole time. Sorry, I just had to time it like that because it just happened to be on the screen right then. Additionally, if you're watching on Facebook, be sure to like and share and comment, and you can drop your questions in the comments, and they will show up over here as well. And of course, if you're watching on X, you can just chat in the video. Drop your question in there, and boom, shakalaka, over here as well. If you're watching us on Rumble, we still, the interface isn't there. We appreciate you, but Rumble really needs to get their integrations for chat squared away. Just going to say that. Talk to their customer service. And, with that, oh, man, it just kind of went dark all of a sudden, didn't it? That was weird. Wow. Okay. I hope we're not going to have glitches. So, just so you guys know, this has been a really, really bizarre day, right? So, we had power outage yesterday. As you know, I mean, we didn't get the biblical kind of hail that Austin got, but it was troublesome nonetheless, right? We had power outage. It was out for a few hours, flicker on and off. So, we got more computers over here than mission control at NASA, and so invariably, no matter what sort of protection you have for your equipment, you're going to have things go wonky. And sure enough, this morning I spent more time than I needed to getting all of this set back up. So if you have some weird glitches tonight, sorry, can't be helped. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, sometimes the answer man is stumped. Anyway, so look, be sure to get your questions in, right? We've got, like I said, we've got some already. You guys have been doing a great job. You guys have been doing a really, really great job pre-submitting questions, right? We've been getting a lot to coffeetalk@etnm.org. And so, we always have some loaded in the hopper when we start, which is nice, priming the pump for when we get this thing started and let you guys warm up. You guys get in chat and you want to say hi and you want to sound off. And I really do obviously appreciate that. Let's do this. I tell you what. So let me find that one. I can't find it, and it's not in the kind of question queue over here. But I saw it, and because it mirrors questions that we've gotten via email in the interim, we've obviously talked a good bit. I showed you on Texian Partisan, I think it was last week. Was that last week? Where, and I may have even talked about it some, there's a lot of territory between last week and this week, right? But where a couple of committees of the Republican National Committee are essentially filing a Federal Trade Commission complaint about these email issues. And so one of the ways obviously that we have tried to combat that. We talked about that with downloading the TNM app. Many of you probably got the notification for tonight that we were going live. That's great. But there have been some specific questions about YouTube, and I wanted to get to that tonight before we jump off. And I want to show you guys this. So when I talk about, when you're on the video, subscribing to the channel, some people have asked, well, what do you mean subscribe to the channel? And I went over to my account and showed you where to grab it and show you where it is, right? So if you go to our channel on YouTube, you will see, it's funny. I'm literally pointing at the screen over here like you guys can see where I'm pointing. Anyway, you'll see there in the red box, there is the subscription button. And when I say hit the notification bell, you'll see the drop down and it essentially says, show me all the notifications. That's how you get notified. Now, I have heard lots of complaints that YouTube doesn't do this, and not just our people. I'm hearing it from other channels that have other subscribers as well. That is a YouTube situation. I can't do anything about that, but those subscription numbers really help. And we've had a bump in subscribers over the last few days, very likely due to the most recent Texas news videos that we have posted over there. They have just done phenomenally. But additionally, and I saw this question, this is the question that somebody asked in chat. They asked what was with the special emojis or the special markers. And we mentioned a few weeks ago that we had launched channel memberships. And I've had some people say, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to get to it. I don't even know how that works. So what I want to do is show you this. Also there on our YouTube profile, right, you'll see the subscribed button where I clicked just a moment ago. And then right next to it, you'll see where mine says see perks, right? The big red arrow pointing to it. That's because I got a channel membership, right? So personally on my account, I got a channel membership. So if you don't have one, you will see it there, the button to do it. And it's like $2 or $3, right? And it really helps. Additionally, something that I found out about, I mean, I've been the recipient of this on more than one occasion, but one of the things that I did not learn until actually this week is that when you're on a live stream like this and you are a channel member, it gives you the opportunity to essentially gift channel memberships to people. So, like when you do a super chat, instead, if you wanted to say gift someone a channel membership, you could do that. So instead of, donating like some people $30 or whatever it is, you do channel memberships. And what it will do is it will distribute those to subscribers of the channel. People that are on the live stream right now will be recipients of those. And of course, all the money goes toward helping us continue to advance the cause of Texas independence. So it all goes to the same place, just different ways to work it. Channel members get different perks. It's a different thing than the membership on the website. So we've got some special videos, special content that gets unlocked, and we've got some archival things that are being re-prepared to go here as well. So it's really, I think, going to wind up being a repository for some pretty special content, and we do that as a thank you to the people that are helping us spread this message. So look, I would encourage you, if you haven't explored that, to go ahead and do that. And look at that, right out of the gate. Lori Phillips, thank you so much for becoming a brand new YouTube channel member. That is really cool. Oh man, Lori, thank you so much. See, setting the example, right? Going out there and charging out there first. Yeah. So anyway, really do appreciate it. And look, I know we've got a lot of new people on here tonight across all the channels. And a lot of it has to do with the last two Texas news videos, the Texas News podcast that we released. And so, oh, by the way, hopefully that answers all of y'all's questions. If you have more about what I talked about on YouTube, please feel free to send them in. back to what I was saying. So the last two, the interview with Stewart Rhodes and then the interview with Jack Miller. And I will tell you, I was on Tuesday night. I was on the live stream, the TEXIT Accelerator with the organizational development team, all the leadership applicants, prospects, and people that are in leadership. And as part of the final word that I gave those folks was really something that they needed to. Really came from something that Jack said that struck me. Now I'm going to tell you that whole interview with Jack Miller, really these two back to back, but because the Jack interview's very fresh, it shook me a bit, right? I mean, it shook me a good bit, and so Jack and I have been communicating a good bit since we first kind of really met at that global self-determination conference that we were part of virtually, right? We were people all over the world. And it was, started to get to know one another, learn more about their movement, them learning about us. And Jack said some really, really kind words about the TNM and was very appreciative of that. But that being said, if you have not watched those last two, be sure to really tuck into those things. I mean, that both of them are probably two of the most important Texas News podcast episodes that we've done. And just simply because they cover completely different territory, completely different. They seem perhaps maybe a little incongruent with the theme of Texas News, but I promise you, they are applicable to what's going on right now. And of course, you can find the Texas News podcast, not just on YouTube, but also on Rumble, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. But I would encourage you to watch them here on YouTube simply because there's images, graphics. You just got to see it. But anyway, so that being said, we're going to, I'm going to just kind of tell you something. So a lot of you have sent in and asked about more questions about what's going on with the Western Cape in South Africa and their independence movement, and kind of wanted to know a little bit more about Jack. And literally just days after the podcast dropped, many of you don't know it, and we talked about it, I think, a little bit in his intro, but Jack is actually a counselor, like a council member in Cape Town, South Africa. And one of the things that happened just recently, like literally last 48 hours, was he was at a meeting of the counselors, the council there in Cape Town, South Africa. And he did very much like what he did on the podcast episode, right? He came bearing facts. And one of the big concerns that his constituents have raised there in Cape Town is the fact that there is a lack of housing. And there is a major concern because there is a major economic migration from Eastern Cape to Western Cape, to where they are, people settling in Cape Town. And the concern is that the housing crisis will be exacerbated by economic migrants that are coming from essentially the Eastern Cape going to the Western Cape. And he came bearing his constituent complaints to the council meeting. He laid it all out for them, and they took offense to the use of the word migrant. Not all of them, but enough, right? And we've talked about, and I'm sure you've heard in the news, how volatile the situation is over there. Well, when he refused to recant and take back the use of the word migrant, which he says literally it's in the dictionary, it is the textbook definition that I'm talking about, they had him kicked out of the meeting. They had him kicked out. As a matter of fact, just a few days after the podcast dropped, this is what happened to Jack.
Remove him! Remove him!
Yeah, that's him being physically removed from the council meeting. So if you get an opportunity, be sure to watch that video. Drop a comment of some, obviously not that video, but when you watch the interview, drop a comment of support Let the Cape Exit folks know that the TEXIT folks are with them in spirit. And, please pray for Jack and his political organization over there. They risk much to advance their independence. And I pray that we get our independence here before we have to face the things that they are facing over there. But all that aside, wouldn't it be hilarious to see people try to drag me, my big behind, out of a meeting like that? That would be hilarious. Those guys would have to file workman's comp claims for the hernias they all got. Anyway, that being said, guys, it's been interesting. Look, here we are in the waning days of the legislative session, and it's always a very interesting thing for me when we get to the end, because it's almost like watching a car crash. You can't take your eyes away. And of course, when you've got a piece of legislation that you are rooting for, that you've worked for, that's so close to the finish line, it's a bit of a nail biter, right? And so, the good news is, late the other night, I get a text message from one of the senators, and he said, essentially, transactional gold is about to hit the floor. And sure enough, got tuned in enough time. I'd taken a break away, but tuned in enough time to watch Brian Hughes lay it out, discussion about the amendments, and pass on second reading through the Senate. Posted about it on X. And then they gabbled in like between midnight and 1 a.m. because technically the day rolled over, and they heard it and passed it on third reading. So it's over on the House now to concur with the amendments. And I'm sure DeRazio will absolutely concur with the amendments, because the amendments that were made, they substituted out, essentially gutted the entire bill, and replaced it with much of the original language, stripping out the Guerin amendment. The only amendment that happened on the Senate side was Betancourt essentially slid the deadlines a few months that were originally in the bill, and he did that to give the comptroller some breathing room, understandably so. But the bottom line is, whether it happens tonight, I don't think it will, because the House is gabbled out tonight already. So probably tomorrow, we're going to see the House concur with the amendments, and transactional gold will very likely be passed before the session ends. And so, I got to do this one more time. Because, I'm not, when am I going to get an opportunity to do that, right? When am I going to get an opportunity to do that? Because the transactional gold, we call it that, but it's essentially transactional precious metals. It is the establishment of a precious metals backed currency for Texas. And I got to tell you, Texiteers, here's the beautiful thing about it. One question, really kind of a broad range of questions, that we get asked about what's going to happen when we TEXIT, they just suddenly go away, right? Suddenly now people say, well, what are we going to do about a currency? We got one. Literally, probably 48 hours from now, you'll be able to answer that. That's why, for weeks, I kept showing this, because I just have to continue to remind people they to understand really what the TEXIT process is, right? You have us on one side, our status quo, where we are, and then the destination is to make Texas politically, culturally, and economically independent and self-governing, right? It is the three legs: political, cultural, and economic independence. And so anything we are doing to move Texas toward independence, that is TEXIT. This is why I tell people all the time, I laugh and they go, when's TEXIT going to happen? And I say, wake up, it's happening now. When we have a sign that says TEXIT now, that's because that's essentially what's happening. We are in the process. TEXIT is not the referendum, right? The referendum is part of TEXIT, but the referendum is not in and of itself TEXIT. It's part of this process, just like this transactional gold bill. Anything that moves us from where we are, being shackled to the federal system, toward independence, is part of that TEXIT process. I tell people, wake up. It's happening right now, right under your nose. TEXIT will never happen, they say. It's happening right now. You know, when I hear people, you know, they're twiddling thumbs and upset about everything that's going on. I just don't see how we can do it. It's happening. Look, you gotta think about this for a moment, right? Literally, the legislative session was so horrible from the moment it gavelled in. We had to make a conscious decision not to burn the referendum bill by attempting to get it filed. I mean, we could have gotten it filed, right? I mean, that discussion was happening to have the thing filed. It was waiting on us to determine whether or not it was strategically sound. And while everybody's over here, all these establishment guys, the people who don't know jack crap about us are all, you know, wringing hands over the referendum bill. You know, we're steadily and slowly pushing these other things that move Texas toward independence. And guys, this isn't the only one. When the session is done and everything is locked down and there's not, you know, governor signed what he's going to sign, he's vetoed what he's going to veto, we're going to have a long conversation about how much progress we actually made under these horrific circumstances, right? I mean, and look, let's be honest. This session is a crap fest. I mean, this session is really, 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 really bad on so many fronts. But the upside has been that these people have shown you who they are, right? These people are so disconnected from the people of Texas, they don't know whether to wind their butt or scratch their watch. They're just complete buffoons. A frat house coupled with, I mean, you know, doddering Dan Patrick, who, you know, people are screaming out for property tax relief, and he's literally on X right now posting about they produced this big property tax cut for seniors and all this. And, you know, what it's so dishonest, right? Because Texans want to be out from under that immoral property tax. And it's so dishonest for him to say that because technically he's right. But what they did not do was keep your local appraisal districts from jacking your appraisals up and eliminating every single solitary bit of what they did. And they did it on purpose. It wasn't an accidental overlooked loophole. You know, it's not one of those things where they're going to be able to kick the can down the road and scapegoat your local governments and your school districts and all that because, you know, granted, those people are elected. But the fact of the matter is they had an opportunity to do something real, to put Texas on a real path to the elimination of a tax that is equally immoral to the income tax, and they failed to do so. They failed on so many things. And on the things they didn't fail on, you know, the things they succeeded on were slapping us with more tyranny, more regulations, growing government, spending more money. You know, how do you justify, you know, $1.5 billion to Hollywood? How do you do that when Texans are having the problems that they're having under the system we got? You know, this idea that somehow these guys are the champions of the free market and of liberty is just a bunch of garbage. You know, the fact that they want to do things to entangle us more toward the federal government or are so resistant that they refuse to disentangle these, right? These ties, these tentacles, these cancerous growths that have grown from Washington, D.C. into the very hallowed halls. Look, I think and I believe that every one of you should send a very clear message. There should be hell to pay come the elections because you have the power. You've always had the power to get rid of these people, right? I mean, you always have. It's just been a matter of putting in the time and the effort and having the self-confidence to make it happen in enough numbers. And I will tell you this, we have talked so much in the past, all of us, I've heard it, about how so much of the electorate is just uninformed. Well, guess what? We're getting ready to address that, at least among the people that we have connections with and contact with, you know, and we've got to really, you know, and this sounds so ridiculous because I don't want people to think this is about a eat, meet, greet, retreat situation. But there is a significant knowledge gap that it is evident that the TNM is going to fill. And it's not just knowledge, it's information. You know, I was talking to someone today who is working for a campaign that is going to challenge one of the incumbents. And I say working with, I mean affiliated with. And part of what happened was there was a survey of the district. And I don't mean a poll like, you know, they send you a text and you respond back. You get some dude on the phone and he's like, you know, do you support so-and-so for da-da-da, or do you support, you know, nothing like that, but literally on the ground research. And what I heard was that the vast majority of Republican primary voters do not know. Let's see, how can I put this? Hang on, I'm trying to be very accurate, but not burn this person. The vast majority of Republican primary voters do not adequately understand the clown show that's in Austin. There, I made it as general as I possibly could. What they do know is they do know the pain that they feel. And the vast majority of them attribute most of that pain to the federal system. But the rest of them don't, you know, they don't have a clue. They just know they hurt. But the ones they attribute to the federal system, without even giving a second thought to what's happening in Austin, they don't know the source of so much of that. They're looking at it from a very big level and not realizing the answer is right there in their own backyards. So it's going to be an interesting election season. However, I can tell you that the final days, speaking of crappy sessions, a debate over the removing the ban on short barrel rifles has elicited to me probably one of my favorite clips. This may expose how juvenile my humor is, but I can tell you that this little snippet right here tells you what a crappy session it's been.
This bill legalizes sawed-off shotguns.
Sawed-off shotguns. Freudian slip, perhaps? I don't know, but I would say it would be a pretty accurate description for this legislative session. Man, oh man. All right, let's get to some questions. Let's do this. Let's take this one from email. Connie wants to know, since the U.S. Constitution forbids taxing the imports of any state to another state within the Union, right? It's again, pausing your question. It is, people don't understand that effectively the United States is a political and economic union. And the economic portion of that is a currency union and a free trade agreement among the states in the union. So that's why you can't tax imports and exports state to state. It says, and since American tariffs have always been paid only on imports from other nations, will the tariff schedule be changed to Texas beginning to pay tariffs on goods imported from the union once Texas becomes its own nation? In conjunction with that, will the union require tariffs on goods it imports from Texas? So, Connie, it's a great question, and it's one that we don't get enough. But here's what it boils down to. Texas, as a self-governing independent nation, will sit outside of what is essentially the U.S. trading bloc. And so, therefore, Texas could both tariff goods coming in from the U.S., but also be the recipient of tariffs, right? They could have tariffs placed on goods that come out of Texas. Now, that is always a possibility, and you have a situation where Texas could essentially come out of the union and go to the default World Trade Organization tariff schedules because, you know, United States is a signatory to the WTO, like it or not, right? That's just the reality of it. And so there is effectively a default tariff schedule, right? To say, these are the fallbacks. If you don't have it, it's something that exists. If you're part of the WTO, then this is what happens, okay? So that being said, the likelihood, and I talk about this in my book, that one there, right? Boy, it needs an update. It's been a while. But I talk about it in here because at the time of its publication, the United States had free trade agreements with 22 other self-governing independent nations: South Korea, Israel, Jordan. I mean, there's just a slew. Obviously, the obvious ones: Mexico and Canada. And so, even Trump in his previous term negotiated the USMCA to replace NAFTA as what is essentially a free trade agreement. So Texas could theoretically become a part of any of those multilateral agreements given agreement of the parties. But very likely Texas, at a minimum, would execute a free trade agreement, a bilateral free trade agreement with the United States. And that is because neither economy is equipped to handle the disruption a tariff war would be between Texas and the rest of the United States. And that's just the reality of it. A lot of these countries where Trump has been trading tariffs, I mean, China being the exception because it's got a behemoth economy, the EU probably being the other one. But Texas has got, we're the 8th largest economy in the world. We probably will be 7th by the time the year is out, maybe by the middle of next year. There's a phenomenal article on the Texian Partisan kind of projecting what that economic growth looks like moving into the future. So it would be unintentionally disruptive, especially since you have so many goods and services that flow from Mexico to the United States through Texas. So it's beneficial to both parties if we go with a free trade agreement between the two. But if it doesn't happen, look, I'm confident. I have utmost confidence that Texas will be able to negotiate a trade agreement that works the best for Texans, which is something we were not able to do under USMCA, something we were not able to do under NAFTA, and something we haven't been able to do since we joined the union. Ultimately, those trade agreements they're drafted in the halls of Washington, D.C., they are ratified in the halls of Washington, D.C., and they have a tendency to benefit places that are not Texas, right? This is not the Rust Belt. We are not, if they're trying to take care of steel workers in Pennsylvania or farmers in Iowa, does not necessarily produce the best result for businesses here in Texas. So, being able to execute our own trade agreements under our own terms is obviously a massive benefit of Texas independence. So anyway, Connie, thank you so much for that question. A reminder, if you'd like to email your question in, you'll see the address down here at the bottom soon, right? It's coffeetalk@thetnm.org. Or if you're watching on YouTube or X, you can drop your question in the chat. Additionally, you can, if you're watching on Facebook, you can drop it in the comments, and we would love to get to your question tonight. All right. Let's see. Holy smokes. Look at this. New members. Hey, Belinda, thank you very much. I wish I had like some confetti to throw. I mean, obviously not real confetti because I would be in so much trouble if I sprinkled confetti everywhere. But Belinda, thank you so much for being a channel member over here. And to Chris, thank you so much for the super chat, 49. He says, I crossed the line. I ain't never going back. Let's go Texas. Yeah, look, we've got a lot to celebrate. I mean, we're close. I mean, I don't want to celebrate early. I don't want to be that clip that I showed in the Texas Blueprint seminar, right? I don't want to be the guy who spikes the football at the 10-yard line. Look, time is short. Things are looking really good. We're right there, but they got to bring it up in the House. They got to concur with the amendments. You got to avoid any fights there, and then you got to move on and make sure the governor signs off on the doggone thing and doesn't veto it. So, but close. I mean, this is really good news for Texas. It really is. So anyway, thank you so much for that, Chris. Really do appreciate it. All right. Oh, and look, if you'd like to join those guys, right? Chris did a super chat on YouTube. In addition, if you were not here at the beginning, if you want to become a channel member, you can do that right there on our profile. You can go. Mine says see perks, but that's because I'm a member. right, of the YouTube channel. But you can do that there and execute a membership as well. All right, let's get to another question. Okay, let's take this all the way back to the beginning. What exactly is a Texas nationalist? All right, so it's funny because I know some people are probably going to be laughing right now, not at you, Ray, but because the contention that there used to be over us referring to this as Texas nationalism and calling ourselves Texas nationalists, and us going, yeah, we don't care because we don't change, we don't call ourselves something different because you can't read a dictionary, right? I mean, that's how we would sometimes we'd be rather indignant with people, and obviously that has changed. The stigma has come off of the word nationalism, at least for a majority portion of the population. You still have some outraged farmers out there that love to just freak out about that. But I will explain it to you, Ray, in the same way that we understood it when we founded the TNM back in 2005. Because believe it or not, this was a heated discussion about what the organization should be called. And there was some discussion about whether we should call it the Texas National Movement. That was bandied about, and part of that was because you had the Scottish National Party, right? So you had that sort of, there was a somewhat of an attempt there, right, to kind of to kind of blunt it, right? But here's ultimately what it came down to. And it came down to us literally pulling up the dictionary and saying, all right, what is a nationalist? What does it mean? What does the word actually mean? And one of the definitions was someone who aspires to independence for their country. And so, we said, okay, this is interesting. So let's kind of take this back and let's run it through history and see if this modern definition bears out. And lo and behold, what did we see? We looked around the world. We looked at history. We saw people referred to when they wanted Irish independence as Irish nationalist. We saw it all over the place. We saw references to English nationalism and Welsh nationalism, and they called those people nationalists. And there was never any connotation. I mean, the Welsh, the cadre of Welsh independence folks and Welsh nationalists and Scottish nationalists are left leaning, right? There definitely no, National Socialism sentiment out of those folks, and yet they didn't have a problem being called Scottish nationalist or Irish nationalist or Welsh nationalist or Catalonian nationalist, right? These were people that were aspiring to independence. And ultimately, the reason that we settled on that word was that, which is you can't let the opposition define you. You can't let them control the dictionary, because at the moment you do that, you've lost, because they will change. Once you give them permission to change the meaning of any word, then you give them permission to effectively change the meaning of all words until the point where they can define you as whatever they want to just because they change the definitions. And so, as nationalists, we believe in independence for our nation. Well, what is our nation? Our nation is Texas. And you can see that ingrained. Let me just go right here. I'm glad I kept this slide on here. Look at our mission. Hang on, I gotta pull you. Well, no, we can get there. Ray, I'm leaving your question up. But look, our mission is to secure and protect the political, cultural, and economic independence of the nation of Texas, right? And so, when you want independence for your nation, at the core of that is what is your nation? Well, our nation is Texas. And then that gets into some other questions about what is a nation, and that's a whole other line of conversation. Not for tonight. Nobody wants to sit through that lecture tonight. Maybe some other night I'll give it, but not tonight. And so that's what makes us Texas nationalists, right? We want independence for the nation of Texas. We want to be self-governing, free, and independent. We want to be able to write our own ticket and to create our own destiny and govern ourselves, because we believe, even with, the sawed-off shark guns and the clown show frat house that is the Texas Legislature, we believe that the best people to govern Texas are Texans, and no nation on the earth wants to be governed by a nation that is not theirs. And so the bottom line here is, and I'll just say this as a side note, uh, some people will say, well, why did you call it the Texas Nationalist movement instead of, say, the Texas National Movement, or the Texas Sovereignty Movement, or the Texas Independence Movement? And the reason being is Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution. It says that all political power is inherent in the people, and it gives those people the right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient. So at the very core of governance here in Texas resides the people. Well, those are Texas nationalists. It is going to be a movement of Texas nationalists that secure our independence. And so the name is essentially truth in labeling as much as you could possibly get. Some people have come along over the years and said, you really should change your name. People have a problem with it. No, not if they're our people, they don't. And I will tell you, the vast majority of people, that when they become ready for independence, they don't care what we're called. But we're called that because it is the right thing. Much like I would not dare go to a Christian and say, there are people generally with, hair like, rainbow snow cones, that object to, your name as a Christian. So, you really ought to change it. You really shouldn't call yourself a Christian. I wouldn't do that. Christians were first called Christians in Antioch because they followed Christ, right? And so why would you have someone change what it is if the definition is right and it's the right thing? Just like you saw Jack Miller get dragged out of a council meeting because he would not recant the dictionary definition of the term migrant to satisfy a bunch of Marxists and their enablers. So, side note, little trip down memory lane as we get ready to approach our 20th anniversary in November. Hard to imagine. But anyway, Ray, thank you so much for that question. That was a good one. It's rare that people go and ask me questions from the beginning, like the super, super fundamentals. So I'm very appreciative of that. Okay. All right. This one is from Debbie. Debbie says, who do you think might be a strong quality candidate to challenge our globalist governor? I don't know. That's a really good question. I will tell you, and I've alluded to this on previous live streams, is I still think there is time for some additional movement at the top of the ticket in the upcoming elections. I know that Dan Patrick has already said that he is going to run again. I think that there may be, I don't know that Abbott's absolutely a lock for this next election. I don't know. He still has presidential aspirations, perhaps, or maybe those have evaporated. But I still think there's time to see some movement at the top. Now, that being said, if we don't see that movement, I don't know what challengers are ready to jump out there yet and challenge him. I really suspect that he is going to get challenged. I think he is probably going to draw some primary challengers. But last time we had you had some great candidates. I know because I campaigned alongside of them just for a different office. But you had some really good candidates. I have not seen people running for office always have a tell. I mean, they do certain things that indicate not only that they're going to run for office, but who they're going to run against. And I've not seen any moves that would indicate that Abbott is going to draw a challenger. Doesn't mean he won't. but I've not seen any moves that would indicate that somebody's getting ready to jump out there and make a run at him in the primaries. And I'll tell you, the vast majority of people are absolutely scared to death because Abbott's got an amazing campaign machine, right? I mean, you just take the person and the policy out of it and understand when after he won his first race, he didn't pack up his campaign and just say, forget it. I'll see you again in two to 4 years, right? That's not what he did. That campaign has been running nonstop since he ran for his first elected position, and it has never stopped. It is a 24/7, 365 operation. It is a fundraising juggernaut. And so much so, and I think one of the things that has scared a lot of people is that big money that he got over the school voucher thing. I mean, Jeff Yass hit him with a $6 million contribution in one whack, the single largest political contribution ever received by a candidate in Texas history, period. It is the single largest donation. And of course, it comes from an out-of-stater, which tells you probably why the legislation to ban out-of-state campaign financing, out-of-state campaign contributions hit a brick wall. I mean, it just really did. So it's going to be an interesting one. But your question is not who do I think will run. It's like who do I think might be a strong quality candidate. That requires a bit of vetting and analysis and a judgment that I am not prepared to make, Debbie. I mean, I'm not prepared to make that yet. I have not seen the pieces moving on the board yet. I might have had a different answer for you had you left out strong, excuse me. If you had left out the word strong quality candidate, there are a lot of quality candidates out there that could challenge him. And a lot of them are strong in many areas, but they have got to be prepared. They should have been preparing for quite some time if they're going to do it, because it will be absolutely a bloodbath. It's going to be hard and tough. But that being said, there's still time for somebody to come in. And what it will take is someone that can coalesce, cobble together, not just sort of grassroots conservatives. I mean, that's what got me to run for lieutenant governor last time, was an open letter from a bunch of grassroots conservatives, individuals, and legislators. I had no intention to do so. But it's not just that. It's got to be the ability to not just have that group of people, but to be able to fund that sort of campaign at the level necessary to run a statewide race, to spin up an infrastructure super fast. Now, granted, there are people out there that could do that. I just don't know who they are. I just don't know if they're even thinking that direction. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for that question, Debbie. Okay. I'll get to that one here in a second. I got to check email. Okay. Speaking of, let me throw that up there. Brenda says, now that everyone hates Dan Patrick, I love posting that I voted for Daniel Miller. Yeah. Anybody who's angry at Dan Patrick right now, understand you could have chosen differently 3 years ago, right? You had an opportunity to do something about that. And, for whatever reason, you didn't. I can't speak to that, but I did what I was called to do. I was asked to do that in service of the greater cause, and I did it. And I don't regret a single. Well, I take that back. I regret 15 seconds of that run, and those 15 seconds occurred at the candidate scrum they had in Navarro County, Corsicana, where they got us up there. Tracy Bradford and I, not only did they jack us around on a table for the thing, and we were literally the first people to RSVP for it, but when we got there, Tracy Bradford and I, they looked at us and said, okay, you each have 15 seconds, now go. And my regret is that I did not spend that 15 seconds standing up and walking off the stage, and dusting off my boots and walking out the door. Because that, my friends, is the definition of public humiliation ritual. Both Tracy and I only had an opportunity to effectively just say our names and say what we were running for. And that was literally it. That was literally it. 15 seconds. I mean, can you imagine? You travel from where we were, because we'd been on the road a bunch. You can imagine. You travel from there, where we are in Southeast Texas, up to Navarro County. You go to this thing. They want to jack you around. They do all this kind of nonsense, and then they do you got 15 seconds. It was a public humiliation ritual, is what it was. I'm telling you, I'm writing a book about that campaign experience, and that is going to be an entire chapter. Navarro County GOP, you've been warned. You're going to be a whole chapter. Treat your candidates better, and you'll get better candidates. Anyway, thank you for your vote of confidence, Brent. I really do appreciate that. And before anybody asks, no, I have zero intention of running again. Although people, you keep asking me, you better go hit that donation button somewhere, right? Because I am not doing that again. Not on a wing and a prayer. Oh, hey, look at that. There we go. Connie Kaiser. Connie Kaiser became a new member of our channel. Thank you so much, Connie. Look, see, this is cool. You get access to new stuff. You people are doing it. And Connie, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. And it all helps out. It helps us get the word out. I mean, look, this has been phenomenal content we've been putting out recently. And this right here helps us continue to improve that and expand that and get that out there. And so thank you so much, Connie. Okay, let's see. John says, I'm so ready to be independent, no loss leaving the U.S. You're right. I mean, there's not a downside for us. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think that, Texas withdraws from the Union and suddenly we get plucked off of the planet and, suddenly we're now orbiting the sun by ourselves, or we get planted down on some uninhabited moon or planet, right? It's not how it works. We're still a part of this world. We become a nation among nations. Sam Houston, I'll quote it at the end. He said that, Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. That's really what this is. Instead of being subservient to a federal system that has grown so far out of control, now we're peers, and you get to have conversations in a whole different way when you're having those conversations on the basis of equals. So, we want to be independent, just like these people we've talked about, the folks in the Western Cape or Alberta or Louisiana or California or New Hampshire or Scotland or Wales or England or Catalonia or the Sao Paulistas in Brazil or Nuevo Leon, Mexico. I mean, that we are right now, you're on the verge of seeing an explosion of independent self-governing nation states, brand new ones. We're on the cusp of a surge that we have not seen since the dissolution of the Soviet Union. It's close. It's closer than anyone in the establishment or academia or the media want to admit. They love holding these things together. They just want the status quo to stay because the status quo is so bad. It grows their bottom lines because they're outraged vampires. Except vampires suck blood, and those people just suck, right? I mean, that's what they feed off of. So they don't want to give anyone any hope whatsoever that there is a different way to do things. And independence, they thought. Those guys never thought the Soviet Union would dissolve. They never thought any of those satellite states would separate from one another. The Velvet Secession, the Velvet Revolution, whatever you want to call it, where Czechoslovakia split, peace, all cool. Or you could have Yugoslavia, where they tried to hold it together under the hands of an autocrat. And when the autocrat dissolved, it turned into this most horrendous thing because it turned into a pressure cooker and it was not allowed to separate peacefully. Then you had the dissolution of the Soviet Union that spun off, dozens of self-governing independent nation states. So we're on the cusp of that happening again. And I'm going to tell you, if you ever, as a Texiteer, doubt how important what you do is, I said at the very beginning, go watch that episode that interview I just did with Jack Miller, and listen to what he says about you, about the T&M. Listen to what he's saying about you. It's good. He's not insulting us, right? He says something good about you. But understand that the importance and the pressure that puts on us, especially when you realize that the rest of the world is looking to us and drawing from us hope and inspiration. So I'm with you, John. All right, let's get down to this one. Barbecue Patriot, has Texas made any progress on election integrity for our state elections? That remains to be seen. You know, we will find out kind of where this whole thing cuts in the postmortem, because you've got some legislation. My understanding is, and I have not had an opportunity to tuck into it today, I'm still waiting on my report. But my understanding is that Dan Patrick, because he was busy throwing, reefer snacks at reporters yesterday during a press conference, that he screwed around and got played on the Senate rules after making fun of the House for their rules all session, and there wound up being a total bloodbath of bills. And I don't know if some of the election integrity bills were part of that or not. I don't know what the disposition of the ones in the House. I've got to go look at the reports for all this. But the postmortem is coming, and we'll be able to tell you a lot of these things. I will say that I don't believe, as of when I last looked, that any major substantive election integrity bills made it across the finish line. I'm sure you had some little things that were tweaks here and there, but as far as what I think a lot of us were envisioning for election integrity, I don't see that at all. I had a conversation with someone today who runs an organization that's what they do, is they train people to, citizens just like us, to go out there and assist in elections, to spot election irregularities. As a matter of fact, let me do this. Regardless of where you are watching or listening, if you would like us to bring that training to you, let us know, because that's part of the conversation that we're having right there, is making this accessible, what they do, to every one of you guys, and then being able to plug all of you, our volunteers that are trained in this, into that structure. So, working together with some of these organizations that are as concerned about it as we are. And look, anybody who doesn't understand why election integrity is a big deal to us doesn't understand fundamentally what happens with referendums, right? If indeed the TEXIT referendum is a major milestone on the road to ultimate political, cultural, and economic independence, and we can't rely on the results of that election, then we're going to be, we got a problem. And so fixing the election situation is probably something we want to do sooner rather than later. There are those out there that argue that we need to absolutely attack the election integrity situation before we have the referendum. I can't say that I'm in disagreement with that. There is a path to ensure that we get a fair and free vote on a referendum, but if we can secure it by law, right, through the law, we can do all those things that we think need to happen, then it prevents us from having to spend resources during the referendum to watch the vote, to make sure. And it's a lot. You're talking somewhere in the neighborhood, for us to do it in-house, would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 35 to 45,000 plus volunteers for that specific purpose, to be able to secure it statewide. And of course, we have had, one of the things we talk about a lot is average voter turnout for independence referendums is 85%. And Dr. Quartrip just released a new book where he's factored in some additional referendums, independence referendums, and He's got that figure now at about 73.1% or 73.4% for voter turnout. But that also includes places that have, like, it's he's got some curve blowers in there. But the bottom line is voter turnout is going to be exceedingly high. So making sure that either we legislatively secure the elections or we have to replace that with our own apparatus. But either way, if you want to be a part of that effort, if you think we need to begin to offer that, and you guys, especially if you're willing. I mean, a lot of people will ask us to do things they have no intention of participating in. They just want to see the monkey dance, right? But if that's something that you're interested in, drop it in the comments wherever you're seeing this, on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, wherever it is, Rumble. Let us know there. We aggregate all those and we review them afterwards. And I don't mean in chat, but I mean like literally in the comments of the videos. And we'll go back in because that sort of feedback is what helps us gauge some of the things we're going to do next. But beyond a shadow of a doubt, you guys are about to get a big announcement about, particularly since we've got to get ready for this next election cycle, we're going to have a massive effort that you're going to get to be a part of related to what you can do to change the situation in the Texas Legislature. So the 90th will not be like the 89th. Okay. Boom. So anyway, thank you for that question, Barbecue. Okay, real quick one, and then we've got to wrap up. What is in a name? I don't know, but that's not the question. That's your screen name, and it's actually really cool. Is there a list of which government officials are pro-TEXIT and which need to be replaced? I will tell you, you can always access the Texas First Pledge signers at taketexasback.com. And that will give you a list, and that's a good starting place. I mean, obviously, we keep our own internal list of interactions that we've had. We know certain ones who are, certain ones who are not. But the best thing any candidate for office can do, like if you're on here right now and you're considering a run for office, or your elected official, you're not sure, one of the best things you can get them to do is go sign the Texas First Pledge. That is a really good indicator as to whether or not they want to put Texas and Texans first, and whether or not they support your rights under Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution to have a vote on your future. It's the bottom line. So taketexasback.com. That's where you can go find the Texas First Pledge, and there's a directory of everybody who signed it. So you'll be able to see that. And thank you for that question. Wow, this has been a good one tonight. This one's flown. All right, let's see if I've missed anything here. I do not believe so. Yeah. I think we're good. All right, so let's do this. It's time to do it. Let me go ahead and thank our channel. Now, this does not include all of our brand new ones tonight, but there's my name right at the top. A big thank you to our YouTube channel members. You guys will be on the one next week, all you brand new guys. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you to all these people who really were kind of the tip of the spear, right? They were the tip of the spear when it came to this program, this YouTube channel membership situation. We want to thank you for that. So really do appreciate it. Additionally, if you are not already a registered supporter of the Texas Nationalist movement, now is the time to go make that happen. Go to tnm.me/vote and register your support today. You do that, you raise the tally one, you get access to some pretty cool things like TNM Social. You get access. I mean, there's all kinds of things you get access to, right? But just go register your support. We need your help. But one of the cool things is we create a side account for you where you can go download the TNM mobile app. You can download that at tnm.me/app. As a matter of fact, many of you that are on here tonight, I guarantee you got it. You got the notification via a push notification from that. And you know what's cool about that? Google or Yahoo or Microsoft or any of these other big tech guys could not spike that in a spam folder somewhere. That was us being able to communicate directly with you without the interference of big tech censorship. And so there is your opportunity. Head over to tnm.me/app. But remember, you do have to have an account to log in. Additionally, look, if you don't want to do super chats, channel membership, not your thing, then you can always donate, and we always welcome it. Head over to donate.tnm.me, make a contribution, whether it's $5, $10, whatever it is. Things get expensive. And just as I told somebody on the phone today on a phone call, the last time we tried to pay our server bills with your thoughts and prayers and good wishes, they turned it off. They don't accept that as currency. They may appreciate it on a personal level, but their shareholders probably do not. So what it does is for us to go out there and do what you talked about. You know, if you want to change the nature of government in Texas, and you want to get away from the federal cancer that it is, and chart our own course into the future, then it's going to take a lot. We're not looking for Jeff Yass. You don't have to donate $6 million, but $5 would be really great, and we really could use it. So be sure you do that. All right, friends. Well, that is a wrap for tonight. Really do appreciate each and every one of you who tune in, week out. And, this is as fun for me as it is for you. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Be sure we'll be back next Thursday, as always. Hopefully, I think we've got a new Texas News episode dropping at the beginning of next week. Be sure to check out all the news articles on TexianPartisan.com. Check out the new merch on the TNM store. You can check out that link. You go to store.tnm.me and check out all that cool stuff. That thing's getting ready to go out to its own domain. There's some big changes happening, so don't anybody panic, but things are going to be much easier for everyone. And so check out the new merch. There's some really cool stuff there, including a Texian Partisan mug. I've got to get one of those. I got to get a Texian Partisan coffee mug, but if I get another coffee mug for the house, my wife is likely to have just an absolute meltdown. I mean, we got more coffee cups than Carter's got liver pills, right? I think we may have more coffee cups than forks, and that's a statement, right? Anyway, that being said, I'm going to wrap up with the words that I leave you with every single time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.